In the past week or so, Donald Trump has had 3 votes not go quite his way. Apparently, this is symbolic of how things have changed since the midterm elections. Not only are there more Democrats to vote against him in Congress, but some Republicans apparently starting to seem like maybe sticking with him, not the best thing in terms of your long-term future in elected politics. I wanna go through all 3. The first and most important is the one that, at least as of right now, he actually has the ability to do something to strike back against this vote. And that was when they passed in the Senate, as well as in the House, overriding his declaration of a national emergency. Now, to be fair, in this case, he has the ability to veto that, which he did, and here is him doing that.
As president, the protection of the nation is my highest duty. Yesterday, Congress passed a dangerous resolution that, if signed into law, would put countless Americans in danger, very grave danger. The Democrat-sponsored resolution would terminate vital border security operations by revoking the national emergency issued last month. It is definitely a national emergency. Rarely have we had such a national emergency. Therefore, to defend the safety and security of all Americans, I will be signing and issuing a formal veto of this reckless resolution, and that's what it was.
He writes like an earthquake that has Alzheimer's.
Well, kind of. I mean, it's not that bad an analogy overall for Trump. So you know it must be a real national security threat because there's 2 guys in cowboy hats behind him.
Big ones.
Damn. Yeah, but as he said, rarely have we had one this bad. So we have to revise the list of top emergencies. Actually, Pearl Harbor now drops out of the top 5. Because we got to fit this one up at number 1.
9/11 somewhere in there still.
Yeah.
Remember a couple weeks ago when the Democrats in disarray stories were just flowing because a couple of members of Congress voted against Pelosi on some procedural grounds that are sort of since been fixed. These are 3 massive rebukes, especially the national emergency when immigration is his singular issue.
Yeah.
Are they in disarray?
And he takes things so personally.
Yeah.
So actually, just to half give them credit and half have Donald Trump hurt their chances of winning re-election. Let's name the Republicans who voted against him. Let's bring this up. You're gonna see Alexander, Blunt. I'm probably not gonna read all of them, but Collins, Murkowski's there.
No, you know what, John? Let me jump in for a second. Yeah, because just stay on this for a second. This is the strangest collection of Republicans I've ever seen vote together against their party. Because there's establishment guys like Portman, Romney. There's libertarians like Lee and Paul. There's so-called moderates like Collins and Murkowski, and then there's like real conservatives like Wicker in there, and Blunt. What is this group?
I don't know. You get your spineless jellyfish with the Rubio, Romney.
Yeah, and Rubio, Romney, like, hey, they're both establishment. They might run against Trump, or if Trump's not around, etc. But it is a motley crew, which goes to Tommy's point of at least we used to be able to track the dissent in the Republican Party. Hey, there's Lee and Rand Paul on the libertarian side. They're cute, right? But they don't cause much harm, etc. That was a mess.
Yeah.
And look, I don't give much credence to disarray, honestly, in either side, because why? Like, what does it lead to, right? And so the Republicans have been fighting amongst themselves for decades now, and they've only picked up seats. Until the last election, they picked up 1,000 seats across the country. So I don't think that hurts them, and I don't think the disagreement on the Democratic side hurts them. But the only way that it would have tangible results is, one, if you lose votes. And so now you might lose votes from almost any quarter in the Republican Party, and that's gotta be a concern for Mitch McConnell. And secondly, if there is a trial of Donald Trump in the Senate, that's a lot of different kinds of Republicans that are now willing to defy him, and that ought to be concerning for Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the disarray votes either. It's like it's so much ado about nothing, but it's a mainstream media favorite. Democrats in disarray is like playing the hits. But it's also interesting that Tom Tillis, who's gonna have a tough election in North Carolina, Lindsey Graham did a lot of concern trolling about this. Ben Sass, everybody's favorite sanctimonious tweeter, thought he was gonna oppose it, and then he voted with Trump. And then Ted Cruz, who's supposed to be this stalwart for liberty in the Constitution, went for this blatant power grab, like literally ripping power away from the Congress that is most clearly the delineated power they have in the Constitution. So bravo, boys, way to stand up.
So I love that story because Ted Cruz throws a Hail Mary pass in the last day, asked Lindsey Graham, who is now in a rom-com with Trump, hey, can you call up your buddy and let's do a last pitch to try to get him to not do this, right? So Ted Cruz makes his pitch, Trump calls in some sort of lawyer, and lawyer says, that would take away some power from you, Mr. President. He's like, oh, hell no. No, why did I interrupt my lunch, right? And Lindsey Graham, being who he is, says, hell, if I was him, I would have told us to go to hell. Then why did you make the call? You're so sad. You're so sad. So all this show of defiance, and when told to heel, Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz are the first to heel.
Yeah, and just briefly before we move on to the two other votes, I just want to go back to, you probably saw it yesterday, but when the vote went through, Donald Trump responded with a tweet that simply said, veto! And I only want to read that because I imagine that he pressed send, he sits back triumphantly, and then has to be told that that doesn't actually veto the bill. It takes more than that. Anyway.
Oh man, that's right, that's true. That's upsetting.
Yeah, I'm gonna make one more. My points are not as good as John's, but I'm gonna make one more anyway. Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan and Joint Chiefs Chairman General Joseph Dunford Jr. both said that what is happening at the border is, quote, not a military threat. So they are now beginning to withdraw some of the troops from the border. So take this most important national emergency with the appropriate amount of grain of salt there.
So this week we also have the Senate finally taking its war powers seriously with another vote successfully passing in the Senate. We'd previously had that in December to stop US involvement in the Saudi-led coalition war on Yemen. Actually, 7 Republican senators voted in favor of that resolution, joining obviously the vast majority of Democrats. So that's pretty exciting too, that 7 senators on the Republican side took seriously that there's no reason that we're ruining our credibility, spending a ton of money and massacring civilians in Yemen. And so thanks to, this is actually bipartisan, but Bernie Sanders and Mike Lee on the Senate side, a lot of great members of the House as well, especially Ro Khanna, who over the last year has come on my show like 5 times to talk about Yemen. And he has been pushing and pushing and pushing for this. And thank God the Democrats took over the House, because otherwise we would have had the same result as we did in December. It would successfully pass the Senate. They would never even vote on it in the House, and we would continue to be a part of that conflict.
Yeah, shout out Bernie, Chris Murphy, Ro Khanna, like absolutely leading on this, doing incredible work. Mike Pompeo goes out today and says that if we cut off military support to the Saudis, what we're actually doing is hurting the civilians and getting them killed, because Yemen will become a Iranian puppet, which is just the most warped window into the way these guys view every foreign policy challenge in the region. Everything is through this crazy prism of Iran. It is divorced from reality and it is idiotic. The war in Yemen started in 2015 during the Barack Obama administration. They were providing logistics, intelligence to the GCC coalition, and refueling support. It was a mistake then. They walked some of it back. This should have been stopped years ago, because you have a famine that is catastrophic. You could see 20 million people starve to death, children stunted for a generation, an entire country blown to smithereens. There is literally no one is for this, except for John Bolton and Mike Pompeo and Donald Trump, because he really probably doesn't even know what's going on.
Yeah, and Pompeo's remarks remind me of Vietnam. We had to destroy the village in order to save it.
Yes.
No, I think you just destroyed it. I think that's kind of what's certainly happening in Yemen. And already tens of thousands of children have starved to death. So every once in a while, when there's a terrible attack, usually a chemical attack, people justifiably make a big deal out of it on television. They show you the dead kids. I think that's important, because you should know what's happening in the world. That's our job in news, to give you the facts, even if they're uncomfortable. But we don't show the starving children, and there are tens and thousands of starving children every day in Yemen. And so one last political note on this for me is about the Republicans who broke ranks. So again, there's the Murkowskis and the Collins that are more moderate, not surprising. Again, there's the libertarians like Rand Paul breaking, and Mike Lee, not that surprising. But Steve Daines of Montana is on the list. He's got a re-election coming up. So the fact that they're a little worried in Montana for the Republican Party is a good thing. And then Jerry Moran of Kansas. he voted against Trump twice this week.
Yeah.
So, I wonder if Chris Kobach losing in Kansas sent a chill down Republican spines there. So that's Democratic voters showing up to vote in these different areas has a bigger effect than you even realize.
That's a really good point.
The third vote, by the way, of course, was yesterday's 420-0 vote in the House, unanimous, to make sure that, symbolic, but to make sure that the Mueller report eventually ends up being public.
Squeaker.
Exactly, squeaker. They, of course, are not even gonna consider it in the Senate because the Republicans still control the Senate. But that is fairly amazing that it was unanimous. And I know that Donald Trump and some of his supporters in the White House, they don't want to see that ever come out. He tweeted to that effect today, saying that there shouldn't even be a final report, which is definitely what you would say if you were totally innocent. But now the idea that you would block that you would not find out the results of this investigation is so radical an idea that you can't find a single Republican in the House who supports it.
But there was one in the Senate who did manage to block it. His little buddy, Lindsey Graham, to the rescue again.
Yeah.
Even Matt Gaetz, I think, just abstained. Like the human frat paddle from Florida who does his bidding.
Exactly. If Matt Gaetz ain't on your side and you're Trump, you might be a little wrong.
Historically stupid individual.
Yes. Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.